Hey, welcome to 49ers Friday. That's Coach Johnston. I'm Grant Cohn. We're going to be here with you for about the next hour. He's in Brazil, but he's still, via technology, he is able to talk to us about football from the other side of the country. How you doing?
Other side of the world, not the other side of the
I
country.
said country.
He did say,
It's true. I did. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm learning new things about Brazil every day. Not part of our country. All right. So we're going to talk today about a couple of coaches who might be making their way back to the 49ers this offseason. And we're going to talk about, I want to ask you, a defensive coach, like solutions for the Niners' issues against one, mobile quarterbacks, and how to fix Talanoa Hufanga, who was playing so well for a couple of months and now really isn't. But first, the title of the show is Why Brock Purdy is Playing Better in the NFL Than College. It's kind of a interesting phenomenon. I have a theory. I want to run it by you real quick. It's like an elevator pitch, okay? So let me put the banner up and tell me what you think. I was taking a shower, getting ready for the show, and it occurred to me. What's interesting about Brock Purdy, he was at Iowa State. I'm not a big college football guy, but correct me if I'm wrong, Iowa State's just another school in the Big 12. Right? I mean, it's not a
Uh,
powerhouse.
fun fun fact. My freshman year in college was actually spent at Iowa State University, so I
Oh,
have,
wow.
have a little bit of a little bit of connection there. I have some friends that are there, so I did know about Purdy beforehand because I have some good friends that graduated there, and they tout have touted Purdy. In fact, I remember when Purdy first started, one of my friends I messaged, and he was like, "Interception coming." That interception did come, but I don't think it really affected. They won the game.
But my assumption is correct, right? It's not a Big 12
No,
powerhouse,
no,
Iowa
no.
State.
Big 12. Iowa
It's a
State is
decent it's a
not.
decent team.
It is a decent team, and no, it is not a powerhouse
No.
by
It's a decent
as
team. So,
Shanahan, as Kyle would say, by no means.
right. So, like, some weeks they have the competitive advantage in terms of talent over their opponents. Some weeks they don't. And he was a fairly successful quarterback in college. I mean, he didn't get drafted high, but he won a lot of games and put up good numbers, was a starter for a long time. Okay, but still, it was a struggle. If you look at his numbers in college, they weren't great, especially his like T to INT ratio. Now cut to the NFL. He happens to be on the best team in the league. Every week they have a competitive advantage over their opponent. It must seem easier. Well, before you're looking at, like, I got Breece Hall and a bunch of nobodies at wide receiver. Now I got George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. Like, this actually, the way I look at it, it might even be easier for him in terms of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. What do you
Is
think?
it like is it like Luka Doncic, where he's like it's easier to score in the NBA than in Europe?
I'm just talking about the talent disparity. I felt like
No,
it was so even for him in college, and now it's like he's on the best team. He's at Alabama right now.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got weapons galore, right? Like he's got Ayuk, which I think most people believe is underappreciated, right? He's
yeah,
got George Kittle, who prior he was an all pro tight end, and now people forgot about him, and all of a sudden now he's having this rejuvenation under Brock Purdy, right?
yeah, right.
Um, like uh, he's got an all pro left tackle, or all like world Hall of Fame left tackle.
Yeah.
Protecting him. He's got, I think Jennings, who's an underrated wide receiver. I mean, you're right, he has weapons galore, and CMC, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and Debo has missed how much of the Brock Purdy run? Maybe about 75% of it.
Yes. Yes. That's
So
true. But, like, for example, I want to just compare Brock to the 5 quarterbacks who were drafted last year: Mac,
good.
Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. Like, for each of those guys, you could argue that college was easier than the pros. I mean, those guys were on really good teams. Trey, especially, he was on the best team in his conference. Mac Jones on the best team. I mean, Trevor Lawrence. These guys, like, they had a rude awakening in the NFL because they don't have those teams around them anymore. Not that they're not talented enough to make the transition, but with Brock, kind of like I would compare it to Dak Prescott when he left. Was it Mississippi State? Good school, not a dominant school in the SEC, and all of a sudden he goes to the Cowboys with Des Bryant and Ezekiel Elliott. It's like, whoa, I didn't have this in college. I think that's an underrated aspect of quarterback scouting is, the supporting cast. What do they have in college, and what are they going to in the league?
Trevor Lawrence had a ton of weapons over at
Ton of weapons.
Clemson.
Ton of weapons. Joe Burrow had a ton of weapons at LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I see where you're going. Like he was the focal point. Like if he was the focal point at Iowa.
It was him and Breece Hall.
Like
And Breece Hall. Him and David Montgomery. You know, that was it.
Yeah, I believe they had a tight end. I think he was pretty solid.
Maybe.
I think he's.
Yeah.
I think he might be
name.
like a junior. Yeah, I think he might be like a junior or something now, or a senior. I don't know, but he was,
not to compare Brock to like a Hall of Famer, but this, when I was growing up, this was kind of like the Aaron Rodgers story. He went to Cal. Cal was nothing special. It was a school. It wasn't a bad school. He had some good players there, but he like beat USC throwing to guys like Burl Toller and people who weren't in, who never went into the league. So that was kind of amazing in retrospect. And I guess, like Josh Allen, he was winning at Wyoming. Freaking Wyoming. Like, that school's terrible. Now, there are examples of quarterbacks who went to powerhouses and work out in the NFL, like Jalen Hurts. And they come from all over, but I think it's worth noting quarterbacks in the future, guys who sort of elevate programs or are able to win at programs who are just middle of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
I think your guy Colin Cowherd has a similar theory about.
Seeing him try to downplay Brock Purdy these last few weeks is not disgusting. It's hilarious and it's expected. He's trying to make the case that Jimmy's been better. Like, so you don't watch the games because everyone who's watched the games it says it's obvious the difference.
You could argue the 49ers, if Jimmy played, could have lost the game against the Raiders because Jimmy would have been sacked like 5 times.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think that Jimmy would have gotten sacked a lot of times against Washington too. I mean, they might have lost to Miami if Brock Purdy hadn't come in early. I'm just saying. Irfan says, "Do you see Steve Young compared Purdy to Mahomes?" I did. Wow, Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever seen, even better than Steve Young. I don't know. Maybe he's right. That's a lie.
I feel like every week we're quoting Steve Young. Like, it's just like,
I know.
Oh, Steve Young said this. Steve Young said this. Like,
he says a lot. He says a lot. Zayd said, okay, so if we're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes now, is there any other comparison that could be even higher than that? If he wins the Super Bowl, who do you compare him to? God? I don't understand. What's the next level? He's already at Patrick Mahomes right now. Okay.
Well, and if you're comparing him to God, is that Joe Montana?
I love how Steve compared him to Mahomes and not Montana. I compared him to Montana. Montana is the obvious comparison, and he's like, no. I'm not giving Montana the satisfaction of Mahomes. That's petty. Petty.
I haven't watched.
I love it though.
I haven't watched your show with your father this week.
Shame on you.
I don't think I watched him. Yeah, shame on me.
That's all right.
But last week, what does your father? Who does your father compare him to, if any?
I threw out the Montana comparison, and he liked it. I mean, I think Garcia is the obvious comparison, but I think the reason I tend to say Montana is the calmness, the confidence in the pocket. Like Garcia was very frenetic in a good way. I mean, he was always his feet were always patent. I mean, he was everywhere, and it was fun to watch. But this guy's much more quiet and calm, like Joe, I would have to say. But that doesn't mean he's going to be Joe. Do people watch football? Yeah. Go ahead.
He doesn't need to be Joe, right? Like,
no.
Joe is probably he's arguably right. I think most Niners fans probably have him at number 1, but if he's not number 1, he's definitely in the top 5, for sure, right? Like,
yeah.
If not number 2, so like, if Brock's even remotely close to that, I mean.
Yeah, you got yourself a quarterback. Zayd says, do people watch football in Brazil, and why do you live in Brazil?
I don't live in Brazil. I'm just here a lot. And
he's not a player. He just crushes a lot.
Yeah. Do people watch football? Yeah, there is actually a community here in a football community. There are leagues here. There is football, American football in Brazil. If you want to talk about world football, like soccer football, there's a ton of that football here.
I heard, because they had Pele. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next topic. That's it for Brock. We'll see if the game continues to be a cakewalk for him like it's been so far. So there are a lot of ways to defend mobile quarterbacks. It doesn't seem like the 49ers have found any of them yet. They're searching. You're a defensive coach. What are some ways that you would that you feel confident defending mobile quarterbacks? What are your go-tos?
I think what the struggle is, right, is like you want to be in two man to defend, because a two man is going to help you defend the pass, but what's going to kill two man is
scrambles.
What's going to kill two man is scrambles, right? So you got to try to what can you do to fix that problem? And I think I brought to you was
and real quick, if you don't know what two man is, that's man-to-man coverage with two deep safeties. Two deep safeties, man-to-man coverage underneath. That's what it is. It's very difficult to throw against that look.
Right.
Can't go deep. Everyone's covered underneath. It's really hard.
Right.
And
what the main beater is for that, it's the scrambling quarterback, because he just waits for the lanes to develop, and then there's nobody looking at him. The only ones that can see him are the safeties that are 15, 20 yards down the field.
Niner fans, just think Colin Kaepernick. There's a reason he didn't get much man-to-man coverage, is because no one could spy him, no one could catch him. Yes.
Yeah. So I gave you a link to the Georgia video. I think
that was great.
Was it probably 2 weeks ago? And what Georgia likes to do is they now remember they're a base 3-4 defense. So what they like to do is they're gonna still rush. They're gonna rush 4, but they're gonna pick their fourth rusher, and he's gonna be what they call a mirror spy. So he's mirroring the quarterback, and then he's going to, it's like a delayed blitz almost. Is best.
So he's not like hanging back doing nothing.
Yeah, he's not going to wait for the for the quarterback. He's going to wait till he sees the lane develop, and then he's going to go attack the quarterback. So essentially what they're doing is they have a spy. They have a spy, but it's an aggressive spy. They're rushing. They're still able to rush 4, and then play their 2-man under on the back end. And I think that could be a viable solution. Now, the 49ers are not a base 3-4, so they're going to have to do something a little different to get to that, right? So they could potentially play they could play, I know they don't like it, they might not like it, but you could potentially play three down, and then you're added. Fred Warner is a good job of rushing, so Fred could be your other rusher, and then you could get Greenlaw and him at the field at the same time. I think in spot duties, I think Ebelcom can be a capable. I wouldn't want him to do it full time, but he could be in spot times. I think he could be a spy on a quarterback. I wouldn't, especially in this capacity where it's like a delayed add-on. So I think that's a viable solution. You'd have to I don't bastardize it a little bit, but I think it's a viable solution.
Hold on. There's another one that I saw that in that video that I thought was really cool too. There was another solution where they rush 4, but you take the left defensive end and you have them rush inside, sort of collapsing the pocket and forcing the scramble to the outside. Then you have a 5th rusher add-on that just keying on that. I mean, that was pretty clever too. I'm sure there are ways to beat it, but that might be effective once or twice a game.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I
don't think, especially against these higher level quarterbacks like Mahomes or something, like you don't want to do, because you don't want to do the same thing over and over again. You gotta be able to mix it up. So you probably need a couple different solutions. That's why, I think you had brought it up before. Just close down the lanes, bring pressure. However, some of these mobile quarterbacks can process and make throws, which. If you just send guys at Mahomes, he's gonna find.
No, that's not what you want to do against Mahomes. No, it's not gonna get it done. No,
right?
No.
The same things about Josh Allen.
This is more effective against Justin Fields or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Kyler Murray.
Especially with the Niners, where you're talking about the Niners need to, and I think we're gonna get into this later, but they need to protect their guys on their back end, especially Hufanga. The more you start bringing pressure, the more you leave him exposed.
That's true. That's true. Let me just say something real quick. I think there are little tweaks the Niners can do to defend mobile quarterbacks. And look, I've talked about this with Robert Saleh on the phone a lot. And his philosophy with this was once the quarterback breaks the pocket, you're screwed. Pretty much. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but man, I mean, whether you got a spy or whatever, you're at his mercy at that point. So the whole thing is keeping him in the pocket.
Keep him in the pocket.
Keep him in the damn pocket. So when I was watching that, you watched the Niners game against the Raiders, there's that play where Stidham breaks the pocket to his left and throws to Devontae Adams, and he's uncovered, and it's a 66-yard touchdown. It's Talanoa probably should have plastered on him and shouldn't have. Okay, but really, the play broke down when Nick Bosa rushed too far upfield and just gave up the huge B gap for Stidham to run through. So what Saleh would say in that situation is they lost when the DN rushed upfield. You got to not do that. And they won the game when Nick Bosa had that beautiful bull rush, didn't give up the B gap, hit and caused the deflection. So it seems to me that this wide 9, you're sort of encouraging the defensive ends to rush too far upfield, and an obvious weakness for the wide 9 is the quarterback scramble through the B gap. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's built. The weakness is built into that defense. It's built into the wide 9. It's built into Chris Kaceric's philosophy of being just an aggressive, having an aggressive defensive line. I mean,
that's a super good philosophy against a stationary quarterback, but against a mobile quarterback, it's like almost inviting him to destroy you.
Yeah, but even going back to Saleh, right? What does Saleh say? What was his philosophy? It was all gas, no brakes.
Right.
Maybe to defend mobile quarterbacks, you need a little brakes, right? You need a little bit of brakes. But I think when you go back to the Georgia. To his credit
though, his final year when he didn't have Bosa, I thought he did a lot better, bringing 5-man pressure. But he did have Jason Verrett. That being said, the Niners have Travarius Ward. Seems like there are things you could do. Yeah.
For sure. And definitely things you can do against the lower tier end, the guys that use him, Kyler Murray and things like that. I think an instance what you just brought up was Bosa rushing too far outside. If you did do the mirror spy in that instance, you could have a Fred Warner or a Greenlaw add on late. As soon as he sees that open beat, go.
Yep.
I mean, hell, in certain spots, Jimmy Ward could do it.
Yep. I love it. Yeah.
Mix it up between.
If a quarterback sees the B gap open up like that, he's going to take it every time. Every time. You don't even have to run past the line of scrimmage, but if you step up, all of a sudden you're extending the play, and So
I mean, Jimmy Ward, you can mix it up. Jimmy Ward can do it. Jimmy Ward can do it. Greenlaw can do it.
All right. But again, that's a fifth add-on rusher. And what I'm just saying is, when you're defending a stationary quarterback, you want to rush 4, especially if you have good 4 rushers. But if you're defending a mobile quarterback, I like rushing 5 in different ways, because you take away that fifth gap. You take away that scramble lane, theoretically.
I think, but I think the kind of what that Georgia video, what they're getting at is, it's kind of like 2-gapping. You're doing the same thing where you're saying you're taking away all the gap, but it's a 2-gap because you're waiting for the
offense
quarterback
to declare,
to declare, and then you're taking the gap.
Yep.
So
I like it. Yeah.
They're kind of getting the best of both worlds. I think for the Niners to run it, they would have to, like I said, bastardize a little bit. They would have to drop.
Right.
They would have to put a defensive end on a back, or
which they do sometimes.
They do.
But if they're not willing to make wholesale changes like this, they could just start with telling their DNs to stop rushing past quarterbacks who can move a little bit. And that includes freaking Jared Stidham. I don't know if that includes – they don't have to really worry about Kirk Cousins in the play. Kirk Cousins.
No. They'll eat.
You don't have to worry about him. And that's why they eat Kirk Cousins' lunch. Another thing is, do you have to worry about Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career? You used to. I don't know anymore. I don't know.
I think
Jalen Hurts, yes. Burrow, I don't know. Josh Allen, yes. Mahomes, yes.
Doesn't it feel like you want to say you don't have to worry about Rodgers, but then the Niners are going to play Rodgers, and then he's going to scramble around and he's going to be like, well.
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, they just made him look so old in the past, but he did have that one game in the regular season last year where he beat him at Levi. So I don't know. Josh Wyatt says, problem with finding a quarterback in late rounds is only 3 years of team control Meaning the team has to make a decision after year 2 rather than year 4. No, you got 4 years of team control. It's 3 years on the undrafted free agents, 4 years on rounds 2 to round 7, and the 5th-year option is the first-round pick. That's why I think they took Purdy. I think they wanted to sign him as an undrafted free agent, but I think that they felt that there would be a bidding war for him, and you'd only get 3 years. So just take him in round 7, and you get 4 years for him. Check it out. Over the cap, I think it's 4 years they get Purdy, which is good news.
And
he's
like dirt cheap.
Dirt.
Yeah. Trey Lance is relatively cheap, right?
Relatively,
right?
Yeah. This guy's making like $900K.
Yeah.
Which means he doesn't have to be better than somebody. Like, he just allows the team to be freaking Alabama. You know what I'm saying? He allows the team to be that for the next 3 years, which is it's the whole philosophy of the team anyway. Don't be quarterback centric. Right. Yeah. Perfect. All right, next question. Why has Talanoa Hufanga regressed so much since the first couple months of the season when he was one of the best players in the team?
The first couple months of the season, I think people thought were touting him as if he was the best player on the.
He was freaking Troy Polamalu. Boom. Ronnie Lott.
I think he was still in the beginning of the year. He was still doing some of the things that he's doing now. It's just really, he's still doing the same sort of things. Right now, he's
week 1 against Pettis. Same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
I think now I believe in the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? He's given up 4 touchdowns. The last
5 touchdowns in the last 4 games.
Sometimes
5 games.
I said, yeah. Sometimes confidence can be a negative thing, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm the man, right? I'm the man.
Yep.
It's worked. Taking chances have worked out great for me. So let me just do more. Right. Let me.
I'm the next Troy Polamalu. I'm gonna play like Troy played.
Right.
And
he says all the right things, right? Like he's like,
yes.
oh, that's on me. I got to be better, but that only flies for so long, right? Like sooner or later, okay, you're recognizing it's you, but now you got to fix it, man. Like
fix it. Yeah.
Fix it. Yeah. Like,
because you're supposed to be the super smart, cerebral, does all his homework, asks the right questions in the meetings. All right, man, we'll stop blowing assignments because you're the guy in the secondary blowing assignments every freaking game and his touchdowns.
Right. And I think the bigger issue is that it's mental and disciplinary. It's not like he's just getting roasted because of his physical abilities. He's blowing mental assignments.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Like if he was matched up on like Christian Watson and Watson just ran by him, whatever, like all right, like that's
bad matchup.
I get
bad
it.
matchup. Yeah.
Bad matchup. Okay, fine. If Devontae Adams just like mossed the hell out of him or whatever and just made a great play,
which is what happened to Lenore last week. It's like, hey man, what are you gonna do? Yeah, you're Lenore, he's Adams. Yup, I get it.
Right. And by the way, according to Pro Football Reference, Lenore has given up 0 touchdowns on the year, and Talanoa Hufanga has
given up at least six, because they said he only gave up 1 against the Raiders. I don't think they've decided who to give the first one to Waller. It looked like it was Talanoa's guy. He ran right at Talanoa, but I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And this is a defense that's given up 19 touchdown catches this season. 19. He's given up 6 or 7 of them.
He has 2 more than the next. He has twice as much as the next Niner, which is
it can't happen.
A couple that
it's making me miss Tart. Tart, look, say what you want about Tart. He won't, he'll drop the interception, whatever. He won't give up 7 freaking touchdown catches in a season. No. 7. He'll be in the right spot. He won't bust coverages weekly.
I've always, when I've coached secondaries, I've always coached to play. I want them to play on the safer side because while interceptions are great and they're a great determining, turnovers are a great determining factor of how to win of winning games. But you know what's a bigger determining factor is touchdowns.
Touchdowns.
Touchdowns, like
man.
Touchdowns for the other team. Touchdowns for your team. Touchdowns. So like 4 interceptions is great, right? That's what.
But how many of those were because he jumped a route, or how many of those were just because he was in the right place at the right time after a tip or an overthrow? Like, he doesn't need to be super aggressive to pick off passes. Maybe you just need to be in the right place at the right time, like Tashaun Gibson was last week.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And I think that's, to me, that's
they'll
the
come.
way you coach it up.
Yeah,
so, like, they'll just let them come to you. You don't have to like go out of your coverage to do it. And I think, and when you do, you have to be super cerebral about it. I think Robert Saleh, I believe, a couple years ago when he was with the Niners, he talked about that, about you know the defensive players, especially. I think was talking about specifically about Sherman. Like, Sherman knew when to come out of a coverage and take a chance, and when not to,
based on 10 years of experience.
Right.
Yeah. And this guy, real quick, I mean, it seems to me that earlier in the season he was taking chances, Talanoa, but he was still doing his job and acting as, most of the time, 1 of 11 on defense. Now, I mean, you listen to what D'Amico said yesterday, he's playing hero ball, which means he thinks he's the man and he needs to go above and beyond what's called and do. It's like, you can't play with a guy like that. The guy's got to be doing his job. You're 1 of 11.
I even thought last week it got to the point where they might have needed to sit him and get him to understand, like, listen, you can't play like this, but like,
you can't play like this. We're going to play Ward and Gibson until you go back to playing like you played in September and October. We know you can do it, man. And I agree, this is mental, and this is him. This is too many people comparing him to Troy Polamalu. Like, whoa, he was playing well. He was an upgrade over Tart. Start there. Stop. He's doing way too much. Your own coach said it, man. You're not a hero.
Right.
You're 1 of 11. Because now, you're the worst player on the defense. You are the liability. You're giving up touchdowns. Stop.
Right. And I do think it's a big. I don't think you can understate that he's called out by his defensive coach. Like, his defensive coach specifically talked about him and called him. He did it in a very soft way. Like,
yeah,
he did call him out. And when has D'Amico really called out players specifically?
Nah. So early on, he's like, it's been an eye discipline issue, and then I follow up. I'm like, well, let's talk about Talanoa. He was so good, but now he's giving up big plays. Is it the eye discipline? He was like, yeah. And then he starts talking about hero ball and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, man, it seems like he's sending Talanoa a message. I'm sure he said this stuff. 100%. Yeah, it's like, and also it's like, okay, so you're saying it publicly, and this has been happening for a while. I'm guessing you've been saying it in meetings, and now this is the next, okay, it's not getting across. You're making the same mistake. Well, now I got to say it. And he didn't go out there with a speech, but once someone asked the question, he was like, well, here it is. Let's go. So,
yeah.
Talanoa, did you get the memo? Did you get the memo? You don't need to be the guy who has a feeling and makes a play every game. Just don't be the guy that gives up the touchdown every game, and the Niners will win the Super Bowl most likely. It kind of feels like the Niners didn't win the Super Bowl last year because of the strong safety position. Don't be the reason this year. Yeah.
To me, I don't feel the Niners didn't win because of strong safety. I thought they didn't win the Super Bowl last year.
They feel that, though. They feel that. But you're right. You're right. Of course. You weren't going to win that game with 17 points. Kenny757 says, thanks for the Huff video. Sometimes it's better to see your mistakes in order to correct them, and he and D. Ryans need to adjust and correct them now. I just put up a video earlier of all the touchdowns he gave up this year. And what's interesting to me about it is there's only one where he's actually in coverage on the guy. Everyone else is a busted coverage. And I only made the video because Brian's brought it up. And I made a video early this week about Purdy's misses because Kyle brought it up. So just wanted to show you what the coaches are talking about. Tanyan says, how do you guys feel about the Seahawks playing at 1 and the Lions and Packers playing at 5, meaning the Lions could get eliminated before they play? I haven't thought about that.
I think the NFL has. Like, they don't want.
So they don't want the Lions in the playoffs. They want Packers, right?
I think they want that game to mean something, right? So I forgot what it is. They're going to want that game to have meaning. So they want that game to be basically a play in your, win and you're in scenario.
Got it.
So that everyone's watching that game. I think that's isn't that game the Sunday Night Football game? The Lions and.
Dude, you think I would cover the NFL, but I just cover the 49ers. Basically. I don't know. Sorry.
You cover 49ers and tacos,
49ers and tacos. Yeah, pretty much. So what do you think the odds of Robert Saleh returning to the Niners next year, that would involve him getting fired by the Jets. You live out there, although you've been spending a lot of time in Brazil, which is not in the United States. It's in a different hemisphere.
Continent.
But continent is the word that I was looking for. You sometimes live in New Jersey, which is where the Jets play. So what are you hearing? What is keeping your ear to the street? What are you hearing about Robert?
Well, full disclosure, we're not rooting for Robert Saleh to lose his job, right?
Never would root for that.
We want Robert Saleh is a really good guy, and we want him to stay on the Jets.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah, he's only had 2 years.
Yeah. So if he were to get fired, I think everybody believes that it's a foregone conclusion that DeMeco Ryan is going to get a head coaching job. I think the Niners would probably their defense would have to fall apart for him to not.
What happened last week?
That being said, yeah.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't be so certain that DeMeco's going to get that head coaching job, but we'll see. It 100% depends on what he does in the playoffs. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, right. Correct. If the Niners defense returns to form in the playoffs, or I don't even know if they need to return to form, but if they're respectable in the playoffs, if they're able to make plays, and certainly if they win the Super Bowl, right? I think he'd be up for a job. So if DeMeco does leave and Robert Saleh were to get fired, wouldn't it be almost seamless transition to just bring Saleh back? And just
absolutely. Yes.
Now, would that be best for Saleh's career? I don't know. I don't know that. Would it be better for him to go to another team, another defense, and turn that defense around so that he can then get another shot at a coaching job? Or because I thought of this before coming on, would it hinder his coaching career for him to come back to the Niners, coach this defense up again? They'll be excellent. Would he then get credit for that? Or would they just be like, oh, well, the Niners, they always turn out a good defense. Is it really Saleh? I don't know.
That's a good question. Depends. Well, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, he could come back and then be like, well, I'll make him a Super Bowl champion. If they do win the Super Bowl this year, how do you improve on that? Unless the defense was, falls apart. In which case, DeMeco probably wouldn't get hired. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure the Niners would offer it.
Hold on. Let's look at it from the Jets' perspective, though. Are they going to fire Robert Saleh after 2 years? Is that what they're talking about in Jersey? Because that seems a little hasty.
I saw it around the internet. That's what made me bring it up to you.
Well, if it's on the internet, it's true. No, I saw it too. I saw some report that the Jets owner might not be happy with them. Look, it seems to me that the reason, they were a really good team and then they fell apart. Their entire offensive line got hurt. Breece Hall got hurt. He's really good. And their quarterback, one's terrible and one got hurt. So, I don't know. We gave Kyle Shanahan the injury excuse a million times. Does Saleh not get the injury excuse? And do you really hold Zach Wilson against him or the general manager who picked him?
I also think, Grant, that some of it is stemming from two big names that are floating around out there, which are Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton. So it's like if Harbaugh is like, hey, I want that job. I'm coming to the Jets. I'll take that job. I like that job.
It's like, hey, Robert, thank you very much. Yeah, I see that. So he could be at the mercy of Jim and Peyton. And of course, if you're going to fire a defensive coach, you always flip and hire an offensive coach after that. So yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, Robert, I can see that. It's not necessarily that you deserve to get fired. It's that, teams make hasty decisions and they might want, because they're going to need a new quarterback next year, right? So
yeah.
So are you going to bring him in for Saleh or are you going to bring him in for some offensive coach? I don't know.
Wouldn't that be like the Jim Harbaugh job? It's like it's got the defense and everything ready, and you just come in.
That's Saleh built. Yeah, that's great. That's really great. Yeah. Isn't that sort of what happened just to the Broncos this year? They had a really good team, young team, good defense that Vic Fangio made. They get rid of him. They bring in an offensive coach and a quarterback and say, we're good now. That's going to be the Jets next year. They're going to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo and Jim Harbaugh, and they're going to say, we're good now. Uh-huh.
And good luck. And Jimmy Garoppolo's going to win, he's going to win 12 games and then be like, oh, look, it's Jimmy. Jimmy turned the whole thing around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I don't really see Robert Saleh getting fired. I guess unless Sean Payton says I really want to coach the Jets. Maybe. Could happen. I guess you just laid it out. What about another guy? Mike McDaniel apparently is on the hot seat. The Dolphins are not happy. He's lost a ton of games in a row. I don't know if you say he got his quarterback hurt, but his quarterback's gotten hurt, and it's very controversial. What do you think the odds are of Mike McDaniel coming back to the 49ers?
I would say low, just because I think the odds that he gets fired are pretty low, and then I would say the odds he would come back, because wouldn't he get an offer to be an offensive coordinator somewhere?
I would think so.
I would think actually so, call the
or he might even get a job as a head coach. I mean, I would think a lot of people would want the offense, because here's the thing about McDaniel. His defense is trash. He did not pick that defensive coach. It was the ownership made him keep him. That was Flores' defensive coordinator, and I think it's clear that this guy is not. Flores was the good defensive mind. So I don't know. I mean, some teams might feel like maybe there's something there with Mike McDaniel. I don't know.
He certainly would. I think if he didn't want a job in the NFL, I'm sure he would get head coaching college offers if he wanted it. I mean, I think
definitely.
Certainly, I do. I don't know why he wouldn't get offensive coordinator offers, and I mean, they could name him offensive coordinator in San Fran, but right, he's not going to be the actual offensive coordinator, because Kyle's calling the plays.
That's true. He could be a big time offensive coordinator for a team. I mean, honestly, he could go coach with Robert Saleh in New York if Saleh keeps his job. Because one thing about Saleh, I don't believe in Mike LaFleur. I don't. And I think that the Jets have a good thing going over there, and they could get a new quarterback, and that Saleh's a hell of a coach, and their defense is legit, and their running back's legit, and they have good talent, but I don't believe in Mike LaFleur at all. And I think that team needs a new offensive coordinator and a serious infusion of quality control. But I can't.
If your guy Ken Dorsey gets a head coaching job, whatever, this year, the guy that you've been touting,
the guy
Mike McDaniel already knows the division, and if the Bills don't win the Super Bowl? It probably will, because they can't effectively run the ball. Why not bring in a guy that knows a little bit about running the football? Let him have Josh Allen, get a running game, and away you go.
I like it. Kevin says he's a new member. Thank you, Kevin Perryman White. Appreciate you. Michael Bowen, just a straight-up donation. Thank you. Josh Wyatt says, I don't think the Niners can beat Mahomes, Burrow, Hurts, or Allen without turning them over. Maybe Huff's style is worth the risk. Can you really stop those guys playing conservative coverage? I mean, can you really stop those guys if you're giving up touchdowns, though? I mean, long ones? I don't know, man.
They turned Mahomes over in the Super Bowl, and they lost.
They did. They turned him over twice, didn't they?
Yes.
Fred Warner and Tarvarius Moore.
Yeah, the problem there was they couldn't score.
Couldn't score. 20 points, not going to get it done. Right. And then last year, 17. This is why I feel like, actually they could use a conservative safety at this point. They're scoring hella points. Just stop giving it back to them. How many times do we have to look at a guy completely wide ass open in the secondary? It's JV football. That doesn't happen in the NFL. Wide open? Nah. Come on, man. Stop.
That's right. That's the whole philosophy. Just let them make the mistake. Let them make the mistakes, and then let your offense kick ass and score like it's supposed to do. Then win the game.
Yeah, yeah. And if you can't do that, then you got to sit and you got to put Ward back in safety. I'm sorry. Michael Bowen says, "Can we talk about getting pressure opposite Nick?" Well, they're paying a lot for Eric Armstead, who's supposedly a great player. And then I'm just saying, what about him? But yeah, I actually like Jordan Willis and Samson Ebukam, but they're not those guys. You're not paying them a ton of money. They're not D Ford.
Right.
They're edge setters.
I think they're hoping their draft pick from this year, develops. And he might, but I don't think this.
It's not going to happen this year.
Nah.
No.
Yeah. The the Niners always like they get their guys to work in the second year, right? Like the
That's
first
true.
year.
It's true.
Um,
Well, they want to have
and
a very strong grown man physical team, and how many rookies fit that criteria? Like Bosa, and that's it. You
yeah,
know, like it's tough. Yeah, but they do a good job of getting these players, pumped up by their second year. They do, and the ones that
yeah.
don't get pumped up tend to not stay on the team very long. Look at Dante. All right, catching strays. Michael Bowen, we got you. Zach says, which team are you most scared of in the first round? I'm not
Green
scared.
Bay.
I don't play for the 49ers.
Uh,
But they should be
Green
most
Bay.
scared of Green Bay. I feel like that's a team that's playing its best football. And I don't think the Niners are
I've
right now.
I've said this. I've said this, and people give me flack. But I think if they play the Green Bay in the first round, I think the Niners are going to lose.
Oof. I mean, I can see it, right? Like, if you're getting burned down the field by freaking Jared Stidham and Taylor Heineke, you might want to fix that before you face Aaron Rodgers. Because at the beginning of the year, I was like, man, he has no weapons. Well, Christian Watson's a weapon, and Aaron Jones is great. So that's two guys. Dobbs is a weapon. That's three. I don't know.
In the NFL, it's not the best. It's not the best team. It's like the best team at the end of the year that wins.
Right.
The best and the healthiest, right?
Right.
And we've seen this before. A team gets hot, and then the other thing is like, I know the Niners own Green Bay, but you own a team until you don't, and that
Exactly.
happened last year with the Rams. Like oh, we won 7 in a row against the Rams, and then it didn't
Also,
matter.
the Packers beat the Niners in Levi's last season. That happened last season. So
Yeah.
it was close. Packers got the ball back late, drove down the field, won. Remember? I remember. Yeah. So
You remember?
that would be one.
You remember?
I would be one, especially when the Niners are now all of a sudden kind of a passing team. Well, I don't know. I mean, that secondary is really good. Maybe the Niners can run all over that team with Elijah Mitchell and Debo and stuff, but
I
it's
hope
hard
I'm
to throw
wrong.
on Jair.
Like,
Yeah.
I hope they play the Packers and they whoop the Packers and
I think they're going to
Niners
get the
fans
number
love-
one seed, man. I think Philly's going to
You do?
collapse and lose to the Giants. Yeah, I think Philly's going down.
Would it be funny if they got the number one seed and then the NFL restructures this playoff and adds an 18 and then they
Probably
don't get a
messed up.
bye?
I don't think it's going to happen, though. RS says, I don't understand the Green Bay fear. You guys looking at who they beat. Well, they just smacked Minnesota last week, but Minnesota's gotten smacked by a few teams.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think the Niners should be able to go to the Super Bowl this year. If you had to look at one team they don't want to face, like, it ain't Seattle. Like, bring on Seattle. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it.
I forgot to ask you or to ask you put this in the topic, but I don't think anyone I've seen people talk about this in regards to Purdy, and which is, don't you think it's relevant how his team feels about him? Because we've talked about this with Jimmy, right? Like they had such a problem getting away from Jimmy because the team believed in him, the starters believed in him, and all of that.
Yeah.
And now, if you're talking about a potential quarterback competition in the future, don't you think it'll be really difficult to have a competition when the entire roster believes in this quarterback, right? Because you've seen guys who have talked up Lance, like Ayuk, who's now talking up Purdy, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
So I don't think you can discount that. And Purdy's every game he wins, every time he wins and plays well, he's earning the trust of his teammates, and that's not something that Lance can.
How do you
Lance
trump
has
that
opportunity.
How do you trump that with a good training camp or a good preseason? You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
Like Brock would have to literally probably throw like 25 interceptions in camp, and Lance would have to be awesome.
No, Brock is sewing this job up right now. Only way he gives it away is if he has like a Brian Hoyer playoff game where you're like, oh, okay, that's not the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because right now he looks like the guy. So,
but I also do think that I don't think the Niners would move Lance without some sort of plan, because I think they're deathly scared of injuries at the quarterback position. I know we know that Jimmy is injury prone, but it hasn't just been Jimmy that's gotten injured. There's been other quarterbacks too. So,
but you can always get another backup quarterback. I just feel like at a certain point, Trey's not going to be happy with just being a backup quarterback in his third year. He needs to play. And if you believe in Brock and want him to be your starter, then Trey is a trade chip. I mean, he's a backup quarterback, but he's worth more to you. You can get a backup quarterback. He's a trade chip. And the longer you keep him on the bench and stunt his growth and don't let him play, I think the less he's worth. So the Niners got to figure that out. If they just see him as a backup quarterback for Brock moving forward, then you might get more out of him as to just trade him now. Get something, get a second-round pick, and sign a guy, draft a guy, bring in two. I don't know.
Right.
We're getting ahead of ourselves, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah. I would say to that, figure it out earlier than later. So you don't wait for all the guys to get signed in free agency, all the decent backup quarterbacks to get signed in free agency, and then you're left with Nate Sudfeld.
You don't want that. No. But it seems to me that if the Niners can draft a guy like Brock Purdy in the later rounds, then maybe they're a good drafting team. Maybe they've sort of found something that a template that they can use to draft another quarterback next year. I suggest DTR from UCLA, but I'm sure there's a guy that they know. Adam Peters is all over it. He's on the case. Do it again. Run it back. Draft another one. I'm saying. And, at a certain point, again, if Brock is the guy and you want him, fine. No problem with that. Let Trey go. Let my Trey Lance go, please. He deserves to have a career somewhere, too. Don't just hold him hostage and ruin it. Because I feel like the longer you hold him hostage, the harder it is for him to reach his potential.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that.
So, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Sidney Johnston says, what?
I was just going to say, I heard you thought total was one person.
Yeah, I really messed that up. It was really embarrassing. I was like, total. She's really underrated. There was like it's three people. I'm like, I should have just shut up. I should have kept my mouth shut.
Total was also a cereal too.
Good cereal.
Still is, but
Sydney says, I feel with the prayer to DeMar Hamlin recovery, the Bills are going to ball out. Your thoughts? Oh boy, that's beyond me, man. I don't know, but they definitely have something to play for.
Right. I think that everyone is in the league and everyone I think in the sports world is behind DeMar Hamlin. How could you not be?
Alex says, think Kyle will limit CMC since Mitchell back now. I would hope so. Let's talk about that real quick, though. Your approach to the final game of the season. Let's talk about it. So the Cardinals really suck. And it almost looks like they're tanking considering how many people they're not playing. But the Niners almost lost last week to a 6-10 team. They gave up 500 yards. They gave up 34 points. As a coach, are you saying I'm sitting X number of starters? Or are you saying I'm playing my guys until they quit and then I'm taking my guys out?
Grant, I haven't looked this up, but and I think it's probably the case. Is the Philly Giants game, is that going to be determined? The outcome going to be determined before
same time? They're playing the same time, unfortunately.
The same time.
Same time.
Yeah,
I would think, but they are.
Ouch. That's.
Yeah.
I think you got to try to play for the 1 seed. Then
you got to play for the 1 seed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you play for the 1 seed, but you have some sort of plan, I guess, and you keep an eye. Like if Philly's
you keep an eye
the Giants,
then,
you keep an eye. If Philly's blowing out
the Giants, and you can be like, all right, well, it's nothing to go for here. But you also can't lose the game. And I think Minnesota plays in the morning. So if Minnesota loses, and the Eagles are blowing out the Giants, you can definitely sit your guys. But if Minnesota wins, you got to win this game.
Right.
You got to win this game. So I think McCaffrey's going to start. I think everyone's going to play. And Kyle's going to be looking to take the guys out as soon as possible. But that's up to them, like not doing what they did last week. Not playing down to their opponent. Not giving up 60-yard touchdowns to unguarded players because you had a feeling. You thought you saw something. That kind of stuff.
The defense has to play better than last week. I thought the offense was fine. The offense was
fine last week. The defense was putrid. And how do you know? They couldn't stop the run. Now, Josh Jacobs, good player. But they made that Raiders offensive line look phenomenal. It's not. It's really not. It's okay. It's an offensive line. And they just dominated the best D-line in football, which tells me the Niners D-line did not come to play. And Bosa essentially said so after the game. So come to play. Otherwise, it's a game. Otherwise, it's a freaking game. RS says trade Trey Lance to Seattle or Miami. See how good he is. Trade him inside the division. I don't think so.
Seattle's going to draft a quarterback, I believe, when they're top.
See, that's what complicates the trade market for Lance. If you were a team that needed a quarterback, would you trade for Trey Lance, who hasn't played in 3 years, or would you just draft a quarterback? Depends. You know what I'm saying? I might just rather have Bryce Young or whoever, Will Levis or whoever. Whomever.
I coached against Will Levis.
Oh, Levis. Yeah.
Levis, yeah.
Did you just shut him down?
No, I did not shut him down. We were playing all sophomores and stuff. It was a bad situation.
Oh, excuses. Yeah, you had injury. Fortnite's Faithful saying Chiefs almost lost to the Broncos 27-24. Yeah, the Niners almost lost to the. I guess you do play down to opponents every once in a while, huh? Huh?
Yeah, I am kind of rooting. I know it's Seattle, but I am kind of rooting for the Broncos to like. Actually, I don't think it's possible now, but I was before. I wanted to see Seattle get the number 1 overall pick, just because it'd be funny. It'd be funny for them to trade away Russell Wilson and then get the number 1 overall pick out of it and just laugh at the Broncos.
That would be great. Oh, anyway, go have a good day in Sao Paulo. I just gave away your coordinates though. Now they're gonna find you. The government's got you.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Good to see you, Coach.
Likewise.